I'm happy as always to say hello and just make some very brief remarks. I also am expected to react to Tim, but that'll be pretty easy because when you hear what he has to say, the reaction comes on its own. But in regard to what I've seen tonight, I can say that I'm never unimpressed. It's never what I expect, and I'm never unimpressed. And I've done it 8 times now, and I'll do it many, many more times. But I think if I have to say anything about this program, it's that we got it right. And we do redefine it from time to time, but I think that we got it right essentially because all we did was set up a way to facilitate your creativity. We didn't do anything else. As far as I know, all we did this fall was put out a request for proposals and wait for you to send them in. And that's an amazing process. And you know, it's interesting, the whole idea of creativity. When I was at Rice, one of my roles was as an associate provost, and so I'm around a lot of Rice engineers all the time. And I commonly get asked, you know, why would anyone be a major in the humanities? And they'll do this even at Rice with the humanities people standing there, but they certainly would do it with me quite often. And I said, well, I don't know. I think it's because, you know, it's not about job training. And, you know, I'm getting my dig back at them because, you know, a lot of mechanical engineering is about stuff you're going to do as a mechanical engineer. I said, you know, that's the real problem is, yeah, mechanical engineering will probably be around for a long time, but, you know, a lot of the stuff that you have in the engineering school hasn't been around for more than 10 years in its modern form. And certainly a lot of biotechnology hasn't been around. And I said, so I think that while history will always be around in English, you know, you don't go out and typically get an English or history job. I mean, that's the rarity. You get a job. And what are you expected to do? Well, you're expected to have an ability to synthesize everything that you do on that job and to turn it into something. And typically, for any job that most of the students here would go out and do, it's creative work. And it may be more or lesser creative work, but it is creative. And that is the thing, the engine that sort of drives the train. And no matter what you go out and do, that's what you're going to essentially be expected to do. And it will involve things like lifelong learning. But the real goal is that creative work. And you know, I was recently reading, actually I'll be honest with you, I listened to it on 19 CDs, Greenspan's book, The Age of Turbulence. And I have to say, by CD 17, it was pretty rough. But I can honestly say there's no way I would have ever gotten through it. In written form, and for anyone who's read it, the words "I will refer to this in chapter 25" would come immediately to mind. But anyway, one of the things that Greenspan had to say was he was talking about the economic term creative destruction, and he said it was interesting when they went into Eastern Bloc countries after the Iron Curtain fell, they'd see tractors that were made in the 30s, which is, I mean, in use in the fields, and they'd say, well, why? You know, the economist says, well, why is that? And you know, it's not just that it was a controlled economy, and it's because it plowed. It was never, you know, in a planned economy. There was never any push. There was never. I mean, he's a capitalist, so there was never any capitalist influence. There was never any market influence to change things. But in a dynamic economy, and whether it be a capital economy or an intellectual economy, it's that creative destruction. New creativity destroys old. Bioengineering, you know, new pharmaceutical work is totally different. Neuroscience today is not only totally different than it was 5 years ago, but it invalidates a huge chunk of psychology that came before it. And that happens, and that's a part of the process. So there's no way you can train someone to be a creative destroyer. But you have to have them, and you have to have it constantly. And then internationalization means that you have to have more and more. And in an international economy, it's that ability to replace creatively with something that's newer and better and more effective is all important. And there's no way to train it. So you have to find other ways to facilitate that. And my hope in this was as an experiment to see if that could be done, and I think it can. But I think our hope, and as a trustee I can say that, our hope in defining and redefining the curriculum and programs here is to do the same thing. And I believe that liberal education in America, I'm always amazed when people don't have an answer to that question. Well, why aren't you like engineers? You don't learn to do a job. And I'm like, yeah, we learn to do every job that engineers don't do.